Hello, welcome. This is Tampa 2, a weekly video series on the Bucs brought to you by Animal House Media. I'm Sean. This is Matt. We are two diehard Buck fans from upstate New York, if you're just joining us. So first, we're going to start off with week 2 game versus Atlanta. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, as we talked about last week, it's a game that we got to win. My takeaways were we took care of business. I mean, we won the game. We came out fast, which we hadn't done, consistently last year. We came out fast and we came out injury free. So I think that's the biggest thing, especially with the NFL, is that the Bucs proved it last year, is that late in the year we were a healthy team and we were a team that worked well together because we stayed relatively healthy throughout the year. So anytime early in the year when you can beat a team that you should beat at home, you come out injury free. I felt good about it. What about you?
Agreed. Definitely, there was a different feeling this game in week 1. Like, didn't feel as nervous. I mean, towards the middle and a little bit towards the end, started feeling a little nervous once Atlanta started coming back.
Yeah.
But for the most part, got in there, took care of business. It was good seeing some guys stepped up in week 2 that didn't really show out in week 1. So yeah,
and it was good. It was good to see. It was good to see our usual strengths still be strength. I mean, our run defense is still stout, and Mike Davis and Cordell Patterson, even though Patterson hurt us in a couple of different ways, our defense was solid. Our run defense was solid. I thought our defense as a whole was solid. I mean, Sue had flashes last year where he looked really good, and then he was there, but he wasn't necessarily making plays. He had 3 or 4 plays on Sunday where he was pressuring the quarterbacks, making tackles in the backfield. He had a couple 3rd or 4th down stops. Nacho played big, which he's a guy that obviously Sue and Vita are two, anchors in the middle. But we brought in Steve McClendon late last year for a depth thing. But if Nacho's going to play like he played on Sunday, watch out, because our already stout defensive line, if it can get deeper, we have one of the best run defenses in the league for the last 3-4 years. And if we're just adding on guys to be able to keep guys like Vita and Sue fresh, I don't know how teams are going to be able to block our front 4, let alone our interior 2-3 guys.
We have that package this year too, where we almost bring in 5 D linemen and have Vita, Nacho, and Sue kind of in the middle, or Golston when he's in, he was looking good too, made some plays.
Yeah.
And offensive side, Gronk, same thing. 2 tutties. He's looking absolutely amazing.
The guy's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He looks like old Gronk in New England, but he doesn't take half of the hits, and the hits that he takes aren't like bone rattling hits. Like, you see him catch the ball and he's getting bounced around, but he's getting touched up by some corners and some safeties, and he's falling forward. Whereas what you saw when he was in New England, people were teeing off on him over the middle, and that's where you started to see Gronk get banged up. And I mean, knock on wood, but he's been catching the ball so fluidly. He's running after the catch, and no one's had an answer for him. In a year, in 2 games of football, no one has had an answer for Rob Gronkowski as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and I love that.
Part of it is probably the first time in his career that he's not the main focus of the defense. Like, we're getting one-on-one matchups with him. We're getting these looks that he didn't see in New England because he was the guy, but you can't really focus on him when you have Evans, Godwin, and AB out there. So he's just dominating in that role.
And that's not even to talk about. I mean, OJ had a sneaky reception for his first target of the year. We talked about it last week. Our weapons are just mind-blowing. I mean, on paper they look great, but when you roll them out there and you don't really realize it until you see the box score after the game. We had 9 or 10 guys getting touches, and our top 4 have 5-6 receptions each. It is just crazy. I can't imagine game planning for the Bucs offense. I couldn't imagine doing it.
And we'll get into it when we talk about this week's matchup, that we might have some other guys getting some touches this week. But continue on this game, Mike Evans, he's back. Week 1 was a slow start for him, but 2 touchdowns. And I mean, right off the bat, they kind of went back to him. I know you had the Mike Evans over yards in that game, and that was looking good within the first series.
Yeah, I think it's typical Brady fashion, and I think you started to see it a little bit with Mike last year, right? They obviously with Godwin, but then they bring in AB, and all the grumblings were, how is Mike Evans going to react to this? Is Mike Evans going to be happy with the lack of touches? There's only one ball that can go around. And then as soon as the media and everyone starts to make this chatter that Mike Evans is going to be unhappy, Mike Evans is getting phased out of the offense, Brady could care less because he's going to feed that man because he is a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. People don't agree with it. He is a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL year in and year out. And because he's played in Tampa Bay, he hasn't gotten that love, but he is open 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, whether he's going deep, and I know you and I were talking about it, him and Brady haven't been able to hit on the deep ball.
Yeah, Brady missed him a couple times deep, and he was still putting up numbers.
Yes, but he's just such a big body. He has such a wide catch radius, such good hands, and you saw it in the red zone.
Yeah,
Mike Evans should get minimum 1 target in the red zone every single time we're down there, even if it's a goal line fade, a slant, or that whip route that he ran. I don't see how anyone can guard it in the short yardage. He's too big, he's too strong, and he's so athletic that it's just, I don't know why we don't throw him at least 1 ball every time. Yeah, I don't care if they know it's coming. We got to give him the ball.
Yeah, I 100% agree. He's just, especially like that whip route. You don't see that whip route coming because you're just expecting fade.
Right.
And
I mean, as a defensive back.
Yeah.
And even though the goal line and the red zone is such a compact area, it kind of limits receivers what you can do. When you have a big, strong, long receiver like that, everything happens so fast. It's hard. It's hard when a guy just physically is that gifted, essentially is what he is. He's a freak.
On the defensive side, on opposite of that, secondary, huge improvement. Dean played way better than he did week 1. Still not unbelievable, but huge improvements. That's great to see. Obviously having Whitehead back was big. And our guy, big play, Mike Edwards.
Blitz coming. Ryan sees it. Oh, it's intercepted. Picked off. Edwards has it all the way for the touchdown.
Comes up. Mike Edwards. The guy steps in the game. He makes plays. That's what he does.
Yeah.
He steps in the game. He makes plays. Yeah, and that's in the press conferences they talked about it last week. Having Sean Murphy Bunting go down, but Whitehead coming back, it allows them to get a little bit flexible with those 3 safeties with Edwards, Winfield, and Whitehead. I kind of thought Whitehead would have gotten a little bit more action in the game. Yeah. But hearing BA talk after the game, I guess I'm not surprised going in. I think just my excitement with knowing he was coming back in full go. I hoped that he was going to be an every snap guy, but it seemed like he was more just going to come in to spell Mike Edwards and give him a breather, which I think that's good that we have the ability to take a guy who's coming off of injury and give him breathers. But the fact that we're having Whitehead come in as a kind of a breather guy for one of our safeties, that's pretty damn good.
And those DB blitzes off the edge. On one of his picks where Davis swatted the ball, which that was huge. We got a little scared there with Davis going down early, but came back in the game. Those DB blitzes were getting there. Devin White's blitzes were getting there this time. You could definitely see a big difference in how good the Cowboys line was week 1 in defending our blitzes and rush. Then week 2, we get a team that just can't keep up on a line with our speed, and that's going to be huge moving forward, I think.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, with a huge improvement with the secondary in from weeks 1 to 2, we got to improve from week 2 to 3. But my favorite thing was that even though guys were open for Atlanta, we were making plays on the ball. I mean, the one ball down the sideline to Ridley that seemed like it was a little underthrown, but Winfield made a great play up and through, breaking it up. I felt like we had a lot of PBUs, which we did not see in week 1. I felt like there was just a lot of guys catching balls in space and rallying to the football. And playing secondary in the NFL it's hard to do. I mean, there are athletes all over the field. These quarterbacks are on point. So at the end of the day, I definitely thought it was an improvement going from week 1 to week 2. And hopefully that can carry over to week 3 because as we'll get into, we got a we got a legit Rams offense.
Some of the not the great stuff during the game. We had a fast start, which was awesome, but then we kind of let them back in the game. Didn't really pull away for a little while. Definitely was a good sign up.
Blitz coming. Ryan sees it. Edwards has it all the way for the touchdown.
Yeah.
Against a better team, especially the team we're coming up this week, definitely need to have foot on the gas the entire time. Can't be letting up. Can't be letting teams back in the game when they can score points on our defense.
Yeah, and I think even the lull in the middle of the game, obviously we want to score points. And what worried me the most wasn't even that. It's that we struggled to sustain a drive. We had 2 or 3 drives in a row where we came out and we had a quick 3 and out, and Atlanta made us pay for it on 2 of their drives, and they cut it to it was like a 1-score game or right off of that. And then luckily we had the Mike Edwards pick 6 and the pick 6 after that, and the defense stepped up. But we had the one where Brady dropped it off to Rojo, and he goes and he's running up the sideline. He steps out of bounds a yard short.
Yep.
But then we end up not getting the first down. We go 2nd and 3rd down, and we can't get a yard. And all 3 of those balls went to Rojo. At the end of the day, Rojo, you're a running back in the NFL. If you catch the ball and you're going down the field on a corner or safety, lower your shoulder, dude. Like, go. I don't care if it's a yard on first down. Like, you got to get physical with guys. We're week 2, and you're playing in a game where you're trying to bounce back from week 1. I just expect him to be a little bit more physical in that on that one specific play.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it parlayed into we get stopped short on 2nd and 1, and then we go back to Rojo on 3rd and 1, and he gets stuffed again. It's just like that. Those moments like that were the most frustrating, because even though it wasn't points, like we weren't at least moving the ball or making Atlanta really do anything. It just felt like our lulls were all Buccaneer mistakes.
Yeah, and that going off that, the run game, slight improvement from game 1, but still not where it needs to be. We're not breaking off. I mean, Fournette actually been looking pretty good. Yeah. Rojo, he still hits the hole hard, and I think he's going to start breaking them off. But definitely, I mean, this week's gonna be a tough one with the D line coming up. Obviously, Donald and stuff up the middle, but I mean, again, if we're going to sustain drives, we need to have the run game going late in games. When we're pulling away from teams, we got to be able to kind of manage the clock a little bit and not just be throwing the ball, especially if sometimes Brady still doesn't have it on some of these drives. He's still not fully in sync sometimes, and we get the completion or incompletions a couple in a row. We go 3 and out, and we let these teams back in. And I think the run game is going to be huge to closing out games coming up.
And I haven't been able to tell really if when we go pass heavy a lot in the first 2 weeks, it's because of how many weapons we have in the pass game, and you put the ball in Brady's hand, and that's the reason why we're doing it, or is it because there's a little bit of a lack of confidence in the run game, so they're deferring to the pass? I've yet to be able to really have a strong feeling one way or the other, because at times where I feel like we're going to run the ball, and I feel like, oh, this could be a great time to jumpstart the run offense and get some confidence. We go to the pass and we convert, or we don't convert. And it's just like, I feel like we're often relying on the pass, and I don't know if that's a scheme or a game plan thing. But that's something I'm going to keep my eye on. And I'm curious to see just how Leftwich and the offense evolves as the year goes on how we're going to get the run game kind of jump started, because there's really only one way to get that chemistry in the run game is doing it. But at the same time, it's hard to do when you have so many weapons in the pass game. How don't you pass on every other down? We just have it all.
So putting that week behind us, going into this week, we got some news. Came out today. AB is on the COVID list. Just saw that he's officially tested positive, so he is out. It sucks, but we were talking today, if there's any position that we're going to lose somebody in, wide receiver is probably the best option. I mean, we have the most most depth there by far out anyone. Might be the return of some Scooter this week. Scotty Miller might see some action from him. Ty John, and maybe we'll see our guy Darden come in, get a little action.
And this is just kind of another kind of snapshot to something we're going to get into later. I'm gonna give a spoiler right now. Again, I don't even know what the yards over is. I will be taking Scotty Miller's yards over because Brady loves Scotty Miller. You saw it last year in big moments. Now that AB's out, I would not be surprised if early in this game, the Rams try to take away a guy like Mike Evans with Jalen Ramsey. You've seen that matchup in the past. And then you see a lot of Godwin. You see a lot of Scotty Miller. You see a lot of tight end influence in this offense this week. But I agree that losing AB, you can never replace an athlete and a receiver like AB. My biggest concern is obviously losing him, but like you mentioned, our depth, I have the full confidence that our guys are going to step up and fill that role. It's just when COVID comes into play, it's, it gives you that unsettled stomach, because just like that, it can all of a sudden be, this big player, this starter, this guy, and it's that domino effect. So I just have my fingers crossed that, it's a controlled positive test, and we don't see a lot of other positive tests in the coming days, because that would be a big setback that we do not want.
Definitely. Some good news this week. BA said Sean Murphy-Bunting doesn't need surgery and will return this season, which is huge. No current timetable, but that's just great to hear going for the end of the season.
Yeah, and I know that's one of the things we talked about last week, of the weird time range that they originally gave. They were going for the second opinion. I know I didn't feel good about it if he was going to be out for the year or coming back. So it's definitely good to hear that. And going off of that, and I want to hear your opinion on this, being a defensive back yourself. There's the rumor mill going that there's conversations going on with Richard Sherman, and he's had his off-field stuff that's been going on this offseason. But at the end of the day, Richard Sherman has had a great career. But he's towards the end of his career. I mean, he's older. So what are your thoughts on bringing in a guy like Richard Sherman to a secondary that is very young? I mean, the Bucs secondary is still a very young secondary. Do you think that his play will help us, or is it more his expertise as a veteran cornerback in the NFL?
I mean, I'm definitely not the biggest fan of him right now, especially all that stuff that happened this offseason. But, I mean, on the field, it'd be huge to kind of get a veteran. I mean, the guys we have now have not had a veteran presence in the secondary almost their entire career. Like, they came in those two draft classes back-to-back, Davis, Murphy-Bunting, Dean, and it was just like, you guys are starters. Go ahead, figure it out. So, I mean, having that veteran presence would be huge. And with the depth, we definitely need that right now. I mean, with the off the field stuff, is there a better place to come and get fixed almost? Like, look what happened with AB. Had a ton of off the field problems, but you get around Brady, you get around this team, and you button up a little bit, you bear down, and you want to be part of. You don't want to be off this team because you have a shot at the Super Bowl. So, I mean, I definitely could help. I wouldn't mind it. I wouldn't mind if we got him on the roster. I don't think that would be a terrible thing. What about your opinion?
I agree. I don't think it can hurt. And the Bucs have proven, again, knock on wood, that the locker room has been strong, because you brought in a guy like AB who had his off-field issues, but he has all the talent in the world, and there's been no issues since. So that gives me confidence that you bring in a guy who has, people have seen the videos and the stuff that hasn't looked good off the field. So I just trust Jason Light and the coaching staff and the Bucs locker room, that if they do bring him in, that it won't be a locker room issue, and hopefully he can bring some depth and some positivity to that secondary that we know can play lights out. I just think they need a little confidence right now.
Agreed. Some other things to note in BA's press conference, talked about consistency as a whole. We get the fast starts, but we need to not be able to let people get back in and be able to convert on short yardage. And Whitehead was limited in the first week, but he's very positive and going forward.
Yeah, I felt like one of the things I liked the most out of BA's press conference, I think it was the day after, I don't think it was the press conference right after the game, that he was happy with the win. Obviously, a win in the NFL is a win in the NFL. But he really wasn't happy with how the team played. And I like that. And I'm sure the locker room felt the same way, because, as we mentioned, it wasn't a perfect game, but they did what they had to do. The defense, I thought, played better from week one. The offense started fast, which had been a struggle of ours last year. So the little things that are early NFL season issues of tackling in space, because they don't do that a lot in practice and stuff like that. I think those issues that we're seeing on our defense are the same issues that you can pick out on just about any team in the NFL right now. So if those are our issues, I'm really fine with that, because tackling and that kind of stuff is going to be fixed, and it's just naturally going to come more natural as they get more game reps and more full speed reps on a week-to-week basis.
Yep. And so that brings us into week 3, playing the LA Rams, a team that beat us last year. Tough game. How are you feeling going in this one?
I'm excited for it. I mean, the Rams are a huge opponent. Obviously another NFC contender. That they were in the Super Bowl, 3 years ago now. Yeah. Last year they're in the playoffs. McVay has been running that machine really well, and they've had our number. I mean, outside of when we beat them in an absolute guns a-blazing shootout in the Coliseum 2 years ago, they've had our number, and they've had our defense's number. Cooper Kupp last year, 11 targets for 145 yards. He was killing us anything in between the hashes. Robert Woods went for 12 for 130 and a tutty against us last year. So they have a formula that has proven to work against our defense. So that makes me a little nervous. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be 2 high-powered offenses. I think it's going to be an awesome game to watch. And I think it could be a foreshadowing of a playoff matchup later in the year. I fully anticipate both these teams to be in the mix in the NFC late in the year. What about you?
Yeah, definitely same. I mean, we've seen that teams, they can succeed on us passing, especially when they get those matchups. They start putting Kupp inside and kind of get them on our linebackers and stuff. It's not the greatest matchup in the world. As good of coverage like David is, that's still a hard guy. I mean, Kupp, Ramsey was saying he has trouble with him in practice, covering him in practice. When we get a linebacker on him, it's not the greatest thing in the world.
Yep.
Especially having Stafford this year, that's a whole different ball game.
And I think what teams have done against us these first 2 weeks, I mean, Matt Ryan, 46 pass attempts, Prescott, 58 pass attempts. I mean, our defense has seen over 100 pass attempts through 2 weeks, and it's worked. I mean, the Falcons moved the ball on us. Dallas scored points on us. So McVay's a smart coach. They have a great quarterback, a gunslinger. They have weapons. I fully anticipate Matt Stafford throwing the ball 35 to 45 times, especially with Darrell Henderson, not going to be 100% with some rib cartilage stuff. Sony Michel, the backup, he's primarily a back who's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. So unfortunately, I think that goes against where the Bucs' strength is in the run game. But at the same time, if we can make them a one-dimensional offense, I trust that our secondary and Todd Bowles is going to be able to dial up some stuff to get Stafford off his mark. And I think this game's going to come down to who wins the turnover battle. Like I said, both high-powered offenses, which defense can get the most pressure on the 2 generals under center, and who's going to make the least amount of mistakes. Yeah,
we're gonna have to be able to cover within 2 to 3 seconds and kind of let our pressure get there. That's gonna be huge. I think we can get to the pressure on them. I don't think they can block us. I think our blitzes with White and stuff are gonna work. I think we're gonna send 5 a lot. But yeah, we definitely force some field goals. That's gonna be huge in this game because they're gonna move the ball no matter what. I mean, it's a good offense in the NFL today. Good offenses more times than not beat good defenses. That's just how the rules are set up. That's how they are. So it's going to be when we get in that 30 and in spot, we're going to have to hold them.
Yeah, bend don't break defense.
Yeah. On offense, we're going to attack the Rams linebackers, get Godwin going over the middle, get our tight ends, get a little dumped off the Robbie G, and running backs are going to have to catch the ball. I think this could be a game where we see Gio Bernard kind of have his breakthrough kind of game, his breakout game with us. You've seen a little bit on third downs, but he's still one of the best pass catching running backs in the NFL. And we haven't even used him yet. And that's one of Brady's favorite things to do is hit the running backs out of the backfield.
Yeah. And one of the things that I love kind of going into this game as I started to look at it is our screen game. I was really excited to get back into that Antonio Brown screen game that we saw early in AB's time in Tampa Bay last year. We had a couple tunnel screens, a couple flat screens with Mike Evans and Godwin both being great perimeter run blockers or pass run blockers. But now that AB's out, I'm curious to see who's going to step into that role because when you have a guy like Aaron Donald, your defensive line, you got to get the ball out quick. So I'd be surprised if the Bucs don't get into some sort of screen game tempo type stuff to try to gas out that defensive line, get the ball out of Brady's hand quick, and pick your spots to take those shots because we're going to have to. But I'm just curious to see who's going to step up in that AB screen game role. Is it going to be Godwin? Is it going to be Scotty? Is it going to be the backs? That's what I'm going to be keeping my eye on because I think getting the ball out of Brady's hand early and not letting Donald really dig in is going to be huge.
Yeah, I think a little bold prediction for this game. I think we could see our guy. We talked about him a lot off season since the draft. Jalen Darden. He's a stud. Looks like
I love it.
He could be an AB type of player, quick, fast. Has some ball skills problems in the preseason, but it's a guy we could get going. So we got to get the ball out quick. Donald's going to be on Brady. He's one of, if not the greatest defensive player of all time. I mean, no matter how good your line is, you can't block him. That's just who he is.
And you brought up Darden. I would love to see that because there's no better time or no better opportunity to take a guy who might have just a little bit of the yips in catching the ball, like you mentioned in the preseason and in camp and stuff. But there's no better time in a big primetime game. You know, the Sunday 4:00 Fox slate. We got Buck, we got Aikman. You know what I mean? The all eyes on us in Los Angeles. There's no better time for a young receiver to get a couple touches. Just be an athlete, be your natural speed, and naturally get that confidence going. I think it would be a great time to get him involved. So I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see how Brady gets these other receivers involved because everyone knows about Evans. Everyone knows about Godwin. Gronk's on everyone's radar. Ty John row the boat and Scotty have stepped up big. I fully anticipate them to do the same, but I agree with you. I love Darden and I hope that they give him a couple of touches to see what kind of flashes he can make.
What do you got for a prediction for this game?
So, I mean, I think it's going to be close. I would say Bucs 35, Rams 31. I think it's going to come down to the wire, and I think it's going to come down to special teams and field position battle. I know I talked about it last week with the loss of our long snapper and how well Bradley Pinion played in week 1. And honestly, he played unbelievably well in week 2 against the Falcons too with field position. But I think it's a close one. I think it's Bucs 35, Rams 31, 2 high-powered offenses. It's going to be fun to watch. What about you?
I think they're going to put some points up on us. I say they're going to have about 31-34, but I think this is a revenge game for Brady. He doesn't like to lose to people. I say we're putting up a 40. I think we're going to have around 42 points. So I'm saying maybe 42-31.
And then just another prediction I want to ask you on this one. So there's been conversations about Brady taking over the all-time passing record. He is 499 yards away. What do you think is the probability of that Brady gritty mentality of, I don't want to go and take this and accomplish this award in New England where everyone is planning on me doing it. I'm going to take the Rams behind the woodshed and just hang a 500 dot on them and just, take reign of that well before I step foot in New England. What do they think of the chances of that?
I mean, he's done it twice. He's gone over 500 twice in his career. I'll put it at 10% chance. Yeah. I mean, if the Rams are putting up points, we're going to have to keep throwing. So,
yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. I think that's one of those things that Brady, that everyone's talking about it and he's going to act like he's going to ignore it. But I think there's nothing better than he wants is to walk into New England with that title already around his waist.
Yep.
And it just to be, it's a Brady show on Sunday night.
Yeah. So any kind of the gambling lines or anything you like this game? I know you mentioned one earlier.
Yeah. So in terms of the spread, I know the Bucs right now are 1.5 favorite. I know the early line, it was flipped. The Rams were a 1.5 favorite. So I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be taking the Bucs, but I think this game could really go either way early in the season. The over under 55.5. I would take the over again, just because I think both offenses are so high powered. And I think both defenses have shown in the first 2 weeks they can be susceptible in the pass game. Yep. Both offenses have unbelievable weapons. But like I said, I think whatever Scotty Miller's over under is going to be, I think it's going to be extremely low, because I don't know if he has a reception all year yet. I don't even know if he has a target all year yet, just because of the depth that we have at receiver. But I fully anticipate, Brady getting Scotty Miller involved, because he's done it in the past. There's definitely that chemistry there. And he's a sure-handed wide receiver who I think can take advantage of those linebacker matchups that we talked about.
Agreed. I mean, I like the Bucs -1.5. I think I would take anything up to 3, up to -2.5. I think it could come down to a field goal. Over. Gotta like the over here. What are we, over 30 points in our last 10 games or so? What was that?
Yes.
10. I mean,
so that was another crazy stat.
It's already halfway there.
So the Bucs have that stat going, that over 30 points. You said the last 10, right?
Yep.
The Rams, I just saw this maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes ago. The Rams have the second longest streak of the NFL of not giving up more than 30 points in a game. It's like a 20-game streak. The only team higher with the active streak is the Pittsburgh Steelers with 33. So that's another thing to keep your eye on. This Bucs offense has been unbelievably hot, finding ways to go more than 30 points. But on the sneaky side, this Rams defense has not given up more than 30 points in probably double the amount of games that the Bucs have gone for over 30 points. So I just thought that was a cool stat. And I think it's something to keep an eye on, because these offenses are crazy, but the Rams defense has proven to show up week after week for a long time.
Yeah, that's a wild stat. Another one, as we were talking, I kind of would like to see if there's a line for it, but Giovanni Bernard over yards, whatever that comes out to be. I think that might be a sneaky one where we're going to use him a lot, because we're going to have to get the ball out quick. I think Brady's going to dump it down to him like he did with White in the Super Bowl against them.
I like it.
All right. Week 3, here we come. LA Rams, fire the cannons. Let's go Bucs.
Let's go Bucs, fire the cannons.